of what we are is so stunningly incredible. Stunningly incredible. But we really are good at making up lots of stories. And we're really good about, using those stories to divide. I don't know why. Just one of those things that I see. I look out in the world, I see lots of, border skirmishes, ideological wars, tribal warfare, all about ideological, I am this. It's what I call, if you've read the book that I have, it's bucket 3 mythology. Believe like I believe, or else suffer the consequences. And the consequences are whatever, we're going to ascend and you're going to burn. It doesn't really matter. It's basically some version of the good people will go and the bad people will suffer the consequences. And so you have people just bashing each other in the head with these things. So this is where the animal doesn't get to breathe. And it's very confusing because everybody you talk to has the right answer. Everybody has the right, got to come hear this, you got to come see that, you got to read this book, you got to do this, you got to do that, do this workshop, do this, that. And I'm like, if you want answers, at least in the space that I'm working in, I am not that guy. Trust me, that dude has some answers. I can just tell because the crowds are big, So people, that's because it's like, well, this is what you do. I'm not that guy. There's places all over that will tell you, well, here's what you do and here's when you do it. But this space of freedom, which is really what I'm interested in teaching, and pushing people's boundaries on, the space of freedom is really a space of it's like a psychological break. It's like where you actually start to perceive the perception of perceiving, which is what that whole week is going to be in Sedona. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your brain on that. But it is that. It's like when you can start to perceive the act of perceiving, frames become very clear. And the workshop we're going to be doing, what I'd like to explore is like the perception of perceiving. Somewhere in there, something happens. Something starts to like go, whoa, okay. And then I see, I look around and I see I see a bunch of just beautiful people just trying to find their way in the world with a lot of confusing, very outdated maps. And it's kind of strange because we're in a technological revolution. I was just watching something, National Geographic did this DNA test in Queens like a year ago, and then they did a special about it. It was really, they just grabbed a block in Queens, and there was some block party, and and pretty much just mapped. I forgot how many people, but they had like 150 people, whatever, and they did this, 200 people, and they did this genealogical map of just following the DNA and just saying, okay, well, here's the path that, your ancestors did, and, and it kind of goes all the way back, and of course it goes back to Africa. And, and people are amazed because they start breaking up the group, and people start out in their separate little tribes, and then everybody sort of gathers up as they follow the branches back, and back, and back, and back, and then everybody sort of like the whole group is, our ancestors are African. Okay? But that's, this is just science. It's not that big of a deal. We broke the DNA code. This is what it is. And yet you'd think that, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't work. It's like, wait a minute, no, I'm this and you're that. And, well, of course, but that's not, we're much more about those stories. And as it turns out, those stories of difference and separation, and you're not me, and you don't think like I do, and, this is just strangling us to death on so many levels. And it's weird because we've all co-opted these frames. We're all walking around with these because they're they're viral. There's this word that's bouncing around called memes. And memes are just ideas. It's an idea about ideas. It basically just says there are memes that take over, and suddenly there's this idea, and it just takes hold for whatever reason. It just rips through the culture. And we live in a lot of that. And then what happens is when you go and you sit down to meditate, or when you go to find your spiritual path, or when you go to discover who you are as a sexual being, you start to encounter those things. You sort of go like, whoa! And you know, trust me, they're hot. They are hot. You touch them and it's like... And that's the fun of what we're doing. Like, we start to begin to look and just go... The big question I always ask, like, how do you know that? Like, and I asked this to myself. I mean, this is where all this craziness started. I was just like, you know, meditating and meditating and meditating and meditating, and I would be like, how do I know this? Do I really know this? Or is this something that I inherited? And not, seriously, like, the numbers of just the amount of crap in my head that was inherited was just unbelievable.